Hi, I'm Rod Goelz at At Metropolis, and this is Quentin Jones.
How you doing?
Quentin Jones is going to be teaching rock band classes, history of rock classes, all kinds of classes. We don't know the extent of all the things he's going to bring to our establishment. This little video we're going to make here is going to be an introduction to getting to know Quentin and where he came from and all that kind of stuff that we all want to know. I want to know. But anyway, so getting started, where did you start with music? What were your earliest musical stuff? What happened? How did it happen?
It would be a combination of, the records that my older brothers brought home or had, which would ultimately be the Beatles, which was a very magical time because I discovered them why they were the Beatles,
They were still a band.
They were still a band, and
Unlike me.
right, which you had to discover them after you were a Rat fan. But anyways,
Ouch.
I jest.
Yes.
Anyways, and the other one would be actually my dad. My dad actually had a famous nylon string guitar.
All right.
And he would play like House of the Rising Sun, and he would play City of New Orleans, and he was blowing in the wind. He had a beautiful voice, and I remember as a kid being enthralled. In fact, Rod, you might like this story.
All right.
I was a real little guy. It was Christmas time, and they said Santa Claus was coming over. And of course, that made me go crazy. And I was misbehaving, so I got sent upstairs to sit with Dad in Dad's room.
Yeah.
Until I could learn to behave.
All right.
And Dad was upstairs probably hiding from the rest of the relatives. It was kind of like a Christmas party.
Okay.
And he was playing the guitar.
What he normally does at Christmas parties.
Right, yeah, that's right. He was playing the guitar.
Yeah.
And it was, I was like, I remember, can you sit there, And I was thinking I got one over on everybody because this was way better than Santa Claus.
Yeah.
So I was enthralled by the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Lived, breathed it. Made me confused.
Yeah.
Wanted to know more.
Wanted to know more.
Yes.
How did you learn more when you were like, when were you like 11, 12?
Well, however old you are. No, I was much younger than that. However old you are, like fourth grade. I mean,
Okay.
I don't ever remember not putting my hands on the guitar.
Okay.
And I wasn't supposed to be touching the guitar, and I
Yeah.
did. I doped out how to make chords.
Yeah.
By looking at the little diagrams.
Yeah.
And I'd learn a few chords, and we had some sheet music around the house, so I'd go through all the sheet music, trying to find the songs that had the 3 chords in it that I knew how to play.
Yeah.
Because I was completely lost. I was completely on my own.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so now you say the Beatles were like an early, tell us about your introduction to the Beatles and all that kind of stuff.
I'd almost have to say I cannot remember a time when I wasn't enthralled by music and the Beatles, but also other bands of the era. I knew them all. Freddie and the Dreamers, Hermits, the Rolling Stones, the Animals,
The British
Dave
Invasion.
Clark 5.
Where'd Dave Clark 5 from?
They're an English band.
Okay,
they were
this is all
actually
British Invasion stuff.
Yeah, Paul Revere and the Raiders, they were American.
Mm-hmm.
But, and don't get me wrong, there was all kinds of, to narrow it down, the one thing is really difficult, but I had a Gary U.S. Bonds record as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
How I got it, I don't know, but I had it, I had a Platters album. It was the greatest hits of the Platters, and I had a gold 45 on the cover.
Yeah.
And I was convinced there was a gold 45 in that album. I thought, where's the record,
Mm-hmm.
The Ventures, those huge Ventures. Steppenwolf. As I got a little older, both my brothers had a little different taste in music, and one liked, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and, then they got into Santana. I can remember, Argent.
Uh-huh.
And the sound of that record, not just the sound of the record.
And the Zombies.
And the Zombies were before, but I remember Hold Your Head Up and being confused by the album cover, and literally it was like a fall and the crispness in the air.
Yeah.
And my brother's record player, and that stuff made a huge impression on me.
Uh-huh.
We didn't sit in front of the TV all the time.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Music, playing records was an activity, something that you did from beginning to end. Moving guitars.
Moving along.
Moving along.
Okay, so now, when was your first? When did you first start playing guitar? Because you started listening to the Beatles, from the beginning?
Oh my gosh, yeah, because you know they were, what were they, 64? They were on the Ed Sullivan Show. I remember right after that. My memories are, I was born in 62, and I can remember back to about 65.
Okay.
You know, events. I was confused by the TV show The Munsters when it came out. So I can, you know, that was 65, you know. So
Confused.
Yes, confused is the word. I remember the album. I can tell you this. I remember Revolver coming out.
All right.
Okay?
My favorite Beatle album.
It's the best Beatle album there is.
Hello.
That changed recording history.
Yes.
And that's a whole other thing that I'll teach you about how Revolver changed
Yes.
everything in recording.
And Sgt. Pepper was a progressive thing. It wasn't just like blam.
Well, it started with,
Not
Endless Summer. Not Endless Summer, that's wrong. A Beach Boys album, it's off the top of my head now.
Pet Sounds.
No, before Pet Sounds. It was this album, then it was Rubber Soul, then it was, you know, Revolver. There was, you know,
a bunch of competition.
Competition,
Good,
yes.
friendly competition.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Both on the same
Yeah,
level.
no scrapping.
Nope.
No fisticuffs. Anyway, so okay, it was around. You had Revolver.
So yeah, you know, and I started just playing the guitars. I said I would figure out a few chords and then try to find the songs that fit those chords. It was terrible, but I didn't stop. I did
Never quit.
Stop. I was determined.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that is that
Huge.
determination that carries you.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Has to.
It will not be stopped.
No.
All right, now, so we have. So did you have guitar teachers back then?
Well, yeah, but you know, they pretty much. It was pretty much you fit to them. And it wasn't.
They broke out the Mel Bay book.
They gave you the Mel Bay book and
Splinter Roller.
Right. You know, and I figured out, I had a Mel Bay book. I actually figured it out on my own.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to go to a teacher to explain a book to you.
Yeah.
You know, I learned so much more from people that did it. I was very fortunate throughout my career. I always tried to find somebody that was more advanced than me and then bother them.
Yeah.
And bother them nonstop.
Yes. Relentless.
It's how I learned to record.
Yes.
I produced records, and I learned to do that by a guy who had a studio in his house, which today, that doesn't seem like anything. You know,
Yes.
Everybody has something to record with. You know, back then, having a studio in your house was like, you know, Disneyland.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, putting a record out was a rare thing.
Uh-huh.
Recording, not everybody recorded on their telephone.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So who was that guy?
His name was Doug Phelps. He was in a band called The Sharks, which was a big band around Lancaster. There was a couple of bands that impressed me because I didn't, again, there weren't under 21 clubs. There weren't a lot of places to see live music. Certainly wasn't any place to see original music. Certainly wasn't very many places to see anything but disco music.
Okay.
So, you know, and I was in my teens and I shouldn't have been out running around, but I did, you know, because that's what you did.
Yeah.
And one of the bands, you know, I heard this band, The Sharks, which, you know, they had a lot, you know, it was like, I knew these people, I met the people and it made it real.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, another band was Rocket 88. I walked in, I saw Rocket 88 when I was like 17. I was underage, and there was this guy just standing on a table playing a harmonica.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't look like what you would think a rock star was supposed to be, or what rock stars were explained to me to be. Mm-hmm. And they had a room full of people just jumping.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then afterwards, I talked to the guy, and he was nice. Mm-hmm. I'm now playing in Rocket 88 many years later. Mm-hmm. So,
okay, so now, so getting into production, you said before about all the stuff that you listened to. You had the Platters, you had the Beatles, you had the Stones, you had the whole British Invasion, American R&B.
Well, yeah, you have to be, you know, you had to be I feel you have to be a student
Okay.
of the music.
Yeah.
And when I say of the music, I should say of music.
Yes.
So if you are serious about learning an instrument or learning music, you're going to listen to things for the sake of listening.
Mm-hmm.
And you build a catalog. I have a reference in my production. When I want a certain sound, I think about the records I listened to and how those records sounded and what were they doing. And oftentimes I'll go back to them.
Yeah.
So if I want a wall of sound, I'll listen to Phil Spector production. And not just the stuff, that everybody thinks of doing, but things like All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, which is loaded with talented musicians and the big sound it got. Or Stax record sound, there was a time when you listened, you could tell where it was recorded or what area of the world it was recorded in by the sound of the record. Because everybody's studio was custom made, thereby every studio had a sound, a feel, as opposed to now everything is homogenized.
Yes. So one of the things we've spoken before, one of the things you said is like one of the best musical kind of advice that you can get is listen to your heroes.
Yeah, that's how I discovered a lot of music. Some of the music I discovered because of my surroundings. I was very fortunate that everybody in my family enjoyed music.
Yeah.
So, we would have an 8-track player, and the great thing about an 8-track player was nothing. But other than that, the good thing about an 8-track player was when you put an 8-track in, if you didn't take it out, it just continually played, right?
Yeah.
Repetition. So I'd be downstairs, ruining a model. When I say ruining a model, I couldn't make anything. I wasn't any good at anything but horses and music. Anyways, I tried, and I would put in an 8-track of Hank Williams.
Yeah.
Because it was my dad's.
Yeah.
And so, I listened to the guitar player, Hank Williams, and how Hank put songs together. And I realized, oh my God, Hank Williams is a blues player.
Yeah.
Everything
Charlie Parker said the same thing. He said, a lot of his peers said, why are you listening to Hank Williams? He goes, listen to the words.
Phenomenal blues guy.
Yeah. Listen to the words. That's suffering. That's the thing. That's the stuff. So one of the things with rock, in the rock band program, and my definitions of rock is you're not stuck you take influence from everything.
Well, let's talk about the Beatles, because that's something that has influenced me, and why I think there's, why I my theory on those 4 lads from Liverpool. There's the reason that they were advanced. It took so many other British bands years to come up. I was fortunate enough, I always tried to put myself in the position of being the least educated guy on the stage, so I'd have to raise my game, and I'll tell you about that. But being a student of music, you realize the Beatles' song structures were such because before they were big, they had to play 7 hours a night, 6 nights a week.
In Germany.
Right. Well, in 1962, if you had to play 7 hours, you ran out of rock and roll pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you had to know country songs, you had to know jazz songs, you had to know show tunes, you had to know. So they were very much familiar with those chord progressions. So when they started writing, their toolbox was stacked.
Yes.
As where bands from London only had to play an hour. Well, you could play Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry for an hour and never have to repeat.
Yeah. Yeah, because they stack their bands,
right.
The Cavern and all the whatever clubs they, better than me.
That's a little free. Yeah. There's a little taste of music history.
Yeah. Okay, so now your 5 favorite albums, and don't limit it to 5.
I won't limit it to 5. How about, why don't we, okay, well, obviously, Revolver. I mean, I have to say that you have to take the Beatles as an album. You have to just say that. Yeah, there's no way to pick it out. Because here's one of the other things that was amazing, not only about the Beatles, but bands of that time. You could not take something from 1964 that the Beatles recorded and put it on 1967's record. In other words, you couldn't put Love Me Do onto Sgt. Pepper. It wouldn't fit because they were night and day.
Yeah,
the progress. You can do that today, though. You can take a band's last 4 albums and mix them all up, and they still sound the same. So anyways, back to your question, I'd have to say, Beggar's Banquet by the Rolling Stones. To me, the Rolling Stones ended with Brian Jones's exit. That's just me. Jimi Hendrix, Are You Experienced? The Clash, London Calling. The astounding 12-string guitar of Glenn Campbell. Johnny Cash at San Quentin. I bought that for my dad for Christmas and then stole it immediately. Help me out here. I mean, there's just so many great Hank Williams.
How much were you into, like, because you were...
Ventures, Underground Fire.
You were probably, 11, 12 years old when the punk started happening?
At first, I wasn't into the punk scene.
All right.
And then I heard Holiday in the Sun. I mean, I had heard The Clash, and I liked them. The Ramones, I had liked them. But I heard Holidays in the Sun, and it was like those stomping feet, which led me back to the New York Dolls, led me back to bands like Mott the Hoople, T-Rex, the greatest rockabilly band of all time, T-Rex, even though nobody would consider them. And they're not glam bands, they're glitter rock. Anyways.
All right.
As I said...
Glam rock is poison.
Totally different thing.
Yes.
Completely different.
Yes.
Anyways, and one of the things I had said before, and maybe I'm repeating now, is what I would do is I would learn those bands' influences.
Yes.
And then I'd go look up and I'd listen to them and learn that band's influence. And it all goes back to Hank Williams, by the way.
Yeah. That's like the son of the musical universe.
Right. I'd have to say that Hank Williams there was obviously blues music before and everything like that, but I think that Hank Williams was the modern take on it, which the gospel.
Storytelling.
Right.
The storytelling.
Right.
Like, I don't want to say white, but like a different kind of a...
Well, it was... When you listen to Hank Williams' lyrics, it wouldn't matter. It is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's universal. Mm-hmm. That's what music should be, universal.
Okay, performance and rock and roll. Like the whole rock band thing. We talk a lot about how performance is just as much of an important consideration, how you present your music to the public as the music itself. Could you say anything about that?
Yeah, well, putting a band together and working within a band is a great experience. It's very much like learning to run a business, because you have to deal with all the things you have to deal with, not only in running a business, but working. You have to learn to work with others. You have to appreciate others' ideas. Mm-hmm. You have to, organize. You have to set goals. You have to set rehearsals. You have to promote. It's just like, what was that thing they used to do? It was a business class they used to teach in school where you made something and you marketed it. What was that?
What?
Pathways to Success. I don't know what they call it, right?
Junior Achievement.
Junior Achievement.
Yes.
It is like Junior Achievement.
It's totally Junior Achievement.
It's totally like that.
Yeah.
But we've lost that, and it's really...
What we do is, the Junior Achievement, what we're marketing is not welcome mats. We're marketing... your
own art, your music.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because, there's a cutback in the arts right now, and it's really a shame because you learn so much from it. Mm-hmm. Anything from mathematical equations, to, as I said, getting along and promoting and sharing ideas.
Yeah.
Learning to work with others.
Yes. Well, there's all kinds of things. So, who were some of the people that you mentioned that playing with other people is one of the playing with other people first of all, but playing with people that are as good as you or preferably better than you. What is your background?
Well, as I said before, I always try to put myself in a position to learn and to be. I don't want to say I engineer, but it's good to be the guy on the stage that isn't full of all the experience. Because you can learn. I was very fortunate to work with people that have been recording since before rock and roll. Charlie Gracie's one of them. Oh. Charlie taught me a lot about music theory without ever explaining one note.
Did he teach you the numbering system?
He kind of taught me the numbering system, but more important than that, we did a tour. Charlie hired me to play with him on a tour where he opened for Van Morrison.
Yeah.
And that was very structured. Then he called me up and said, would you like to play for me over the summer? He had a whole bunch of gigs, and these were different types of gigs. And I said, sure. I said, what are we playing? And he said, I don't know. I said, well, can you give me a list? He's like, no. I said, can we practice? No. I said, can you help me? He goes, look, kid, I know 3,000 songs. How am I going to tell you? He says, show up.
Yeah.
And I did, and the first 2 weeks were horrendous. I couldn't follow or anything. But by the end of the summer, wherever he went, I could go.
Yeah.
That's priceless.
Yeah.
You know, and as I said, Charlie has done everything. Charlie was on the Ed Sullivan Show. He had, you know, he was one of the early 50 rockers. So, I mean, he could tell me, I mean, we just lost Chuck Berry. He would tell me Chuck Berry stories. He would tell me Eddie Cochran stories. These are people that founded our music. You know, or playing with, you know, Peter Noon one time needed a fill-in guitar player. I think it was like 15, 20 gigs. I don't remember, but I was fortunate enough to be that guy for a while. And, I mean, there's a man that knew how to perform, you know? And it was great because working with Peter Noon, it was very structured. And working with Charlie Gracie or some of these other guys, you wing it. Like Robert Gordon. If you can stick with Robert Gordon for anything, you're doing all right. Because he throws everything at you. You know, I played with Linda Gale Lewis. Linda Gale Lewis is Jerry Lee's sister. She was been on stage with Jerry Lee since the early 60s. Imagine that. And, you know, I learned from her, and I've learned from a lot of people. And always put yourself in the position to learn from somebody who has done and has been there and has done it. It's really good. Learning from the books is good, too. Don't get me wrong. I wish I would have took my time and learned to read music. I actually went ahead of myself, and I had to jump back and learn to read music. You know, and I'm not a good spot reader. You know, and that's the other thing. You find out what you're good at because there's a need for everything. Sometimes you need a bass player that just sticks right there in the roots and sticks with the kick drum. You know, sometimes you want the guy that's all over the place. Sometimes you want to read music. Sometimes you want to flow with it. So there's no one thing. You have to try to be as well-rounded as you can. And same with the different types of music. You know, I have a vast record collection, not because of any other reason than that's my college. It's right there on the records. There it is. There's your school. So when I'm producing something, if I want to, you know, do something that, as I said, you know, if I want something that's like a George Martin sound, I know where to go. If I want a Stax record sound or a Motown sound, Gold Star Studios, you know, everyone had a taste of flavor.
All right. Anything else considering with Rock Band? Anything else you'd like to add to it about?
Well, I just wish, you know, it would have really been beneficial if I had something like that. You know, to learn how to work as a unit and to get together as a group and to have other people share the experience and be able to call up, say, somebody that's in Rock Band with you and discuss what's going on and get together. It really does promote, you know, working together, working as a team for a common goal.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
I think